Hypixel Skyblock has quite a few skills, but out of all of them, the main one is definitely combat. Combat in Skyblock is mainly done through Slayer quests and dungeons, but there is also mini-bosses. But how many of them are actually good? Let's make one of those tier lists, I guess. Let's start with the first boss in all of Skyblock. Though it's pretty different from back then, there's three phases, one in which it jumps around throwing fireballs, one in which it splits into a bunch of smaller cubes which have an insta-kill attack for some reason, and after repeating those two phases 5 times, you get to the last phase, in which the boss is really tiny and extremely annoying to hit. I am not a fan of the last phase, but what about the drops? The boss drops compact tools and rekindled ember fragments. What can you craft with them? The fire fury stuff isn't the worst thing in the world, but it really isn't great. Rekindled ember armor has around the same stats as Shadow Assassin armor, but it cannot be dungeonized. The Scoville belt is one of those items that's extremely good in one very specific situation, but in this case the situation is a bit too specific. Then we have the Scourge cloak. The stats are pretty good, so I guess it's pretty decent if you don't plan on doing anything involving fire. Lastly, there's the Delirium necklace. It increases around all stats by 1, which I guess is okay, but just like the Scourge cloak, it increases fire damage a lot. Overall, it is a pretty fun boss, but the B tier it doesn't even work. B tier. Anyways, the next boss added to the game was the Ender Dragon, or I guess the Ender Dragons. Unlike the Magma boss, which just spawns whenever he feels like it, you actually have to summon dragons using summoning eyes. The issue is summoning eyes actually cost some money, and on average you won't really profit. But let's say you're an Iron Man or whatever and don't care about profit. Are the drops any good? Protractor, Dragon Armor sucks, Old is okay, Unstable and Strong are decent. Young is one of the few ways to break the speed cap, so that's pretty cool. Wise is okay, Superior is pretty good, but it's not worth it. The aspect of the dragons is very good considering how cheap it is, but it being cheap is not a good thing if you're the one doing the dragons. Dragon scales are worse than the Fierce Reforge. It also costs quite a few coins to apply, so just use Ancient please. Dragon Claw is actually the best sword reforge in a lot of situations. Finally a good drop. Dragon Horn is pretty much just Dragon Scale V2. The 1% more stat thing is okay on Sorrow if you plan on using Sorrow for magic find specifically. Also if you combine it with Superior, I guess that's how you get max pet luck, but who cares about that. What about the fight itself? You just shoot the dragon, either with axes or bows. You can also hit the end crystals for crystal fragments, which are okay I guess. Bad drops, bad fight. It really shows its age. Yeah, the dragons go in the D tier. Oh wait, I forgot about the dragon pet. It's really good but also really rare, just buy one. After Ender Dragons, I'm pretty sure the next boss that was added was the Headless Horseman. Again, you actually have to summon this one, but you have a lot more freedom as to where you'll summon it. The drops aren't the worst thing ever, as long as you actually care about the spooky festival, but who does? Either way, it's a fast way to grind bestiary and the fight is somewhat enjoyable. C tier. I'm not sure whether I should count the Season of the Jerry Magma Cubes as a mini boss or not, so I won't. Anyways, next up is the Endstone Protector. This boss fight is pretty uninteresting, however it's short, so you don't have time to get bored. The meta for this boss is Bone Meringue, so it gets extra points for making random useless item half useful. As for the drops, the Golem Pet isn't the worst thing ever, Crystal Fragments are okay, and Stone Roses are just 3k coins, and finally the Tier Boost Core is only useful on one pet. Cool. I'd say B tier, but just barely. The next mini boss on the list is Agni. Just like the Ender Dragon, she has to be summoned, however the materials used to summon her are very cheap. The fight itself is very annoying unless you have a Phantom Rod, at which point it's pretty decent. The Venom almost forces you to use a Cowhead, which is also somewhat annoying. What about the drops? Let's start with Soul String, since it's used in a lot of recipes. Probably the most noteworthy item you need Soul String for is the Terminator. Obviously Soul String is not the main ingredient, but I think it's still worth mentioning. Soul's Rebound can be good I think, I don't know. Venom's Touch is okay for Bell and low tier Void Glooms. The Queen Stinger thing sucks. What about the other drops? I guess the Tarantula Pet isn't the worst thing in the world. Overall, 8. tier. The fight is pretty enjoyable if you have the right equipment, the drops are useful, and fighting Agni levels up to beast tiers at once. Next up is Bell. The fight consists of just shooting him with a bow. Your health is never in danger or anything. The only good drop is the Bell Pet, which to be fair is pretty good. He also drops the Topaz Crystal, I guess, C tier. Next up we have all the Nether bosses except the Magma boss, since I decided to start with him. All of them drop Kudra keys, and I did keep that in mind for the ratings, but I didn't mention it, so it wouldn't get repetitive. First off we have the Mage Outlaw. The spell powder isn't very good. None of the items you can craft with it are great. However, he is arguably the easiest Nether mini-boss, and the fight is somewhat fun. B tier. Blade Soul, same thing, except there is actually one good item you can get, aka the Ragnarock axe. Still B tier, but a bit higher. Barbarian Duke X actually has a pretty cool fight. It also has two good drops in form of the Flaming Fists and Leather Cloth, which is used to craft the Gauntlet of Contagion, A tier. Lastly, we have Ash Fang. This fight sucks. It's just really unfun, though I guess it's worth it for the Fire Veil Wand. Weirdly enough, not only is the Fire Veil Wand the only good Ash Fang drop, except for the Kudra Kids and stuff, it is pretty much the only Ash Fang drop, since the Lumino Fibers are also used exclusively to craft the Fire Veil Wand. D tier, get out of my sight. Overall, this isn't a good look for the mini bosses. If we added Slayers and Dungeon bosses, the overall rating would be greatly increased. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I think mini-bosses are a great part of the game. Fighting mini-bosses is when the game is at its most casual point, but also when it's at its most competitive point. At the same time, I love Slayers, and I think dungeons are pretty cool, but please don't let the mini-bosses die. They were the first real challenge added to Skyblock, and they're the only part of the game that has the potential to challenge players forever. Anyways, that's it. My next video will probably be a Skyblock lore video, I think. Bye.